children, welcome back. Last class we saw the first part of the lesson, how, when and where. Today we are going to discuss periodization, sources of modern period, how British preserved documents, etc. First part is, how do we periodize? What is periodization? Periodization is the process of arranging the events happened in the past with respect to date and time. It is the process of arranging the events happened in the past with respect to date and time. Periodize refers to dividing history into different periods. James Mill. Who was James Mill? James Mill was a Scottish economist and political philosopher. In his book, A History of British India. What is the name of James Mill's book? A History of British India. He divided Indian history into three periods: Hindu, Muslim and British, on the basis of the rulers of different period. What is the problem of this classification? This periodization is based on religious line. James Mill thought that all Asian societies were at a lower level of civilization than Europe. He had a colonial bent of mind and thought Asians to have poorly civilized. He thought Europeans to be superior. According to his telling of history, before the British came to India, Hindu and Muslim rulers ruled the country. During this period, religious intolerance, caste taboos and superstitious practices dominated social life. According to James Mill, Hindu and Muslim rulers had ruled India and there was huge intolerance against the religion of each other. Some social evils were also present, such as caste system, superstitious beliefs, etc. According to him, it was necessary to introduce European education and manners to Indians for their upliftment. Can we accept the division of Indian history on the basis of religion? We cannot categorize Indian history as totally a Hindu period or Muslim period, etc. Rulers from both the religions had ruled within the same period of time. Moving away from the classification of James Mill, the historians have divided Indian history again into three, that is ancient, medieval and modern. But this classification also has some problem. What is the problem? Here British period is considered as modern period. So generally when we talk about modern period, it denotes the growth of science and technology and also freedom, liberty and equality to the citizen of that society. But during British period, there were no such rights given to Indian citizens. As you will see in this history textbook, under British rule, people did not have equality, freedom or liberty. There was no economic growth and progress. So historians refer to this period as colonial. What is colonial? In this book, in your history textbook, we will study how British established their rule in India and took control over all the territories, revenue and resources of our country. They forced Indians to sell their goods at low prices. They brought changes in our culture, custom, economy, etc. All these things refer to colonization of India. What is colonization? Colonization is the act of setting up a colony away from one's place of origin. British established political control over India. They made India as a colony. So next part of this lesson is, how do we know? How do we know? How do we know about the British period? What are the sources of historians to create the history of this period? Let's see. First, administration records. Administration records. One of the important source is the records of the British administration. The British believed that act of writing was important. They believed that each and every policy and agreement should be recorded so that it could be studied and debated if needed. So they, according to them, the art of writing, or they wrote every documents and preserved. They also felt that all important documents and letters needed to be carefully preserved. Specialized institutions like archives and museums. Archives and museums were made in order to preserve important document. British made archives and preserved document, archives and museums to preserve important documents. What do you mean by an archive? It's a place where historical documents are preserved. They appointed calligraphists. Who were calligraphists? The people who were specialized in the art of beautiful writing. One who write beautifully. So British appointed calligraphists to copy important document. Next part is surveys become important. The practice of survey became very important during the time of Britishers. They wanted to know India in order to administer it properly. Why they conducted surveys? They wanted to know India in order to administer it properly. So they conducted surveys like botanical survey, archaeological survey, zoological survey, forest survey, etc. So British conducted surveys like botanical survey, archaeological surveys, zoological survey, forest survey, etc. Why they conducted surveys? They wanted to know the soil quality to check the suitability for different crops. They wanted to map out India. They also wanted to know the flora and fauna, and also they wanted to know the local histories. From these surveys, we can get lot of information. We will get lot of information from these surveys. But were this sufficient to serve as a source to know Indian history? Can we depend administrative records and surveys alone to create Indian history? Let's see. Next part is what official records do not tell. We get a lot of information from these surveys, but we should know that these surveys were recorded according to the point of view of the officers. These surveys are official records. In order to know what other people of the country felt, we need to look for other sources also, such as diaries of people, autobiographies, booklets, newspapers, ideas of leaders, poets and social reformers, etc. So, if we wanted to know about the common people, British records like surveys and administration records were official records. Only officers' point of view they have written. But if we wanted to know about the common people, we should refer other type of sources also like diaries, autobiographies, accounts of pilgrims and travelers, newspapers, popular booklets, ideas of leaders, poets and social reformers, etc. All these serve as a good source to write the history of modern period. Now let's see some questions and answers related to this